US President Donald Trump has secured Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's backing for a US-sponsored peace proposal to end the war in Gaza. But the question looms over whether Hamas will accept the plan. The White House released a 20-point document that called for an immediate ceasefire, an exchange of hostages held by Hamas for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel, a staged Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, Hamas disarmament, and a transitional government led by an international body. Now let's look at the big takeaways of the peace plan proposed by President Trump. It calls for an immediate ceasefire, war halts instantly if both sides agree, Israeli forces freeze positions and suspend operations. All hostages must be returned within 72 hours. In turn, Israel will release 1,950 Palestinian prisoners. There is no place for Hamas in the governance of Gaza. Gaza will be governed by a technocratic Palestinian committee. Full-scale aid must reach immediately to address Gaza's humanitarian crisis. This will include water, electricity, hospitals, etc. Aid and governance will be supervised by international bodies like UN and a new board of peace chaired by Trump that includes former UK PM Tony Blair. Gaza will be rebuilt via a Trump-led special economic zone to attract investments. Hamas members who disarm and commit to peace will get amnesty. A US-led international stabilization force to train Palestinian police and secure borders has been proposed. Israel will not annex Gaza and military will pull out gradually as ISF and transitional authority take over. With reforms and redevelopment, a roadmap will open for Palestinian self-determination and future statehood.
Immediate end to the war itself, not just Gaza. It's the war itself. Under the plan, Arab and Muslim countries have committed, and in writing in many cases, but I actually would take their word for it, the people I mentioned, I'd take their word for it, to demilitarize Gaza, and that's quickly. Decommission the military capabilities of Hamas and all other terror organizations. Do that immediately. And we're relying on the countries that I named and others to deal with Hamas. And I'm hearing that Hamas wants to get this done too, and that's a good thing.
But if Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President, or if they supposedly accept it and then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself. This can be done the easy way, or it can be done the hard way, but it will be done. We prefer the easy way, but it has to be done.
So will peace plan hit Hamas roadblock? However, Hamas remains the key to whether Trump's peace proposal will work. The group's absence from negotiation and its previous repeated refusal to disarm raised doubts about the plan's viability. Hamas hasn't yet received the plan officially. A Hamas official has told Reuters, a wire agency. Hamas, which triggered the war with October 7, 2023 attack on Israel, still holds 48 hostages, 20 of them still alive, Israel says. Its critics argue that the ceasefire proposal appears to be an ultimatum to Hamas at a gunpoint. Speaking to reporters about his visit to the United States, Netanyahu said he was happy about the deal and now the Arab world and the Muslim world are putting pressure on Hamas to accept conditions Israel has set together with the United States of America.
Your plan is consistent with the 5 principles my government set for the end of the war and the day after Hamas. Everybody asks, what is your plan for the day after Hamas? Here's our plan. Pass it in the cabinet. All our hostages, both those who are alive and those who died, all of them will return home immediately. Hamas will be disarmed. Gaza will be demilitarized. Israel will retain security responsibility, including a security perimeter for the foreseeable future. And lastly, Gaza will have a peaceful civilian administration that is run neither by Hamas nor by the Palestinian Authority. I support your plan to end the war in Gaza, which achieves our war aims. It will bring back to Israel all our hostages, dismantle Hamas's military capabilities, end its political rule, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel.
To ensure the success of this effort, my plan calls for the creation of a new international oversight body, the Board of Peace, we call it, the Board of Peace, sort of a beautiful name, the Board of Peace, which will be headed not at my request, believe me, I'm very busy, but we have to make sure this works. The leaders of the Arab world and Israel and everybody involved asked me to do this, so it would be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump of the United States. That's what I want, is some extra work to do, but it's so important that I'm willing to do it, and we'll do it right, and we're going to put leaders from other countries on, and leaders that are very distinguished leaders, and we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, good man, very good man, and some others, and they'll be named over the next few days.
Now, there is no mention of West Bank. Resolving the West Bank settlement issue is central to lasting peace between Israel and Palestine. West Bank is a big flashpoint. There are disputes and clashes every day between the Israeli settlers and Palestinian residents, which are only likely to get worse. Just last month, the Israeli government gave final approval to a controversial plan to build a new settlement that would effectively divide the West Bank in two, making a future contiguous Palestinian state unviable. So let me straight away go to George Birnbaum, former Chief of Staff and advisor to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who understands the way Benjamin Netanyahu is working towards his goal. So George, my first question to you is, and thank you for joining me on the show, is this a workable plan? Will Hamas leave Gaza and agree to disarm, sir?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's good to be with you. I think there's a bigger question. Whether or not Hamas accepts or not, and let's assume they accept for the moment. We have had generations of Palestinians taught to hate and kill the Jews. I think Hamas agreeing to this plan is the interim step. The long-term step, if this peace plan is to work, is whether or not the Palestinian people and its leadership, both in Gaza and in the West Bank, under Fatah and Mahmoud Abbas, are willing to recognize Israel's right to exist. It's a simple question, and one that no Palestinian leader has ever acknowledged. So it's kind of hard to envision a long-term peace if the people themselves aren't willing to accept living side by side with the Jews in the state of Israel. So I'm hopeful that Hamas says yes, because at the end of the day, the most important thing right now for Prime Minister Netanyahu and every Israeli citizen and every Jew around the world is the return of our hostages, both alive and dead. That is the primary goal. Peace is a long-term prospect. We have to unwind decades and decades of taught hatred, decades and decades, if not hundreds of years of conflict. We have to unwind that. And as long as the Palestinian people are willing to recognize the Jewish right to exist, the Israeli right to exist, then long-term peace can be achieved.
What's your assessment? Will there be a military solution to the political issue or a political resolution that will lead to a lasting peace, sir?
It's a good question. What we have seen in recent weeks, and it actually started with the Abraham Accords under the first Trump administration, is the Arab and Muslim world, as you said, is supportive of this plan. The political solution will work if there's enough political pressure from the Arab and Muslim world. According to President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, in their words yesterday, there is broad support among the Arab and Muslim world for not just this particular plan, but for long-term peace and prosperity across the region. So I am hopeful, and I think most people around the world are praying that with enough political pressure from the Arab and Muslim world, a long-term prosperous peace can be achieved.
Can this peace be achieved without resolving the issue of West Bank? Because the settlement issue is also adding a different layer to this entire peace plan.
Again, I think the issue of borders, the issue of settlements, all those things can be resolved if we get to a point where we hear from Palestinian leadership and the Palestinian people, simple words: you, the Jewish people, have a right to exist. You, the Jewish people, have a right to exist in the state of Israel. If those words can be uttered by the Palestinian leadership and by the Palestinian people, then we can talk about borders. Then we can talk about Palestinian self-determination and statehood. But until then, the prospect for long-term peace, I think, is very dim.